The plan wasn't originally to go for the Dante with Bonfire, but you must have been pretty pleased with the way things worked out.
Yeah, I was. I mean, the reason we were looking to avoid York was just the proximity of the trial to the race itself. Just didn't give us a lot of fumble time if something went wrong, but happily he seems to have come out of the race great. And yeah, as you say, in retrospect, I'm very glad that's what's happened. I mean, it was the perfect trial for him.
And what did you make of his performance that day?
I was very pleased. I think he did everything right. Travelled well, knuckled down when he had to. Jimmy didn't have to get strong-armed with him, and he still won going away, suggesting that the extra furlong and a half should be within his compass.
He's certainly shown a lot of ability on the track. There's still question marks about his temperament, though.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's going to be an intense atmosphere on Derby Day, but it's going to be the same for all the runners, and he's got to handle that.
How much of a concern is it for you?
It's a concern because you don't want the second favourite to lose any energy going to the start, but I don't think Jimmy's fairly confident, won't be a problem. He's got to ride him, so that's fine by me.
You said immediately after York he's not the flashiest of workers at home. Has he come on now he's got that run under his belt?
He seems very well. I mean, he is a little bit Jekyll and Hyde at home. One day he'll just saunter up there and not without a care in the world. The next day he's a decent horse. And it's rather a nice way. He's been very well, appetite good since York, moving well, seems happy, so fingers crossed.
And what about the track?
Track shouldn't be a problem. I mean, he's got, which I think is fairly key, he's got the speed to travel, to hold a position, which I think helps you if you're in the right position when they start stepping on the gas coming down the hill. It's got to be to your advantage.
And ground, what would you want for him?
Anything, doesn't matter. And usually they have very decent ground here, even on a hot spell. I mean, obviously none of us would want it as soft as it was when the day they ran the Derby trial here, but that's unlikely to happen, I would have thought, now at this time of year. So fingers crossed, good ground, everyone will be happy.
And looking at the opposition, is it all about Camelot?
Yeah, I think he's the obvious danger. He's a classic winner already, with a fabulous pedigree, great looking horse from a man who's trained Derby winners before, and I think I was very impressed by Main Sequence at Lingfield. I think he's a very nice horse on an upward curve, and there'll be others come the day, I'm sure.
Inside the final half furlong, Main Sequence and Shantaram. Main Sequence by 3 parts of a length, and Main Sequence maintains his winning sequence.
I thought his run was very good. He was very professional, and he could do no more than win the race. He's a handy little horse. He travels well. There's a lot said about his temperament, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the horse's temperament. Yeah, obviously Camelot is the hot favourite, and he's obviously the one to beat, and he was very impressive in the Guineas. So yeah, he's the obvious one.
It's been a very stop-start time with him. We thought originally of going to the big bonus race at Newmarket in a very wet spring, and decided against it. Andrew wanted to get a run into him. He thought he did early because the horse was so boisterous at home and a bit of a handful. And then we sat down and thought, no, we're going to go the proper traditional route here, and we'll go D stakes. And think that'll teach him going left-handed, and Chester probably suit him fine. And it gives enough time between the D and the Derby of 3 weeks, for recovery and everything. So that was the plan. But like all, considered plans, it all went awry with the ground on the morning of the race. Andrew called me and said, "This is desperate ground. I can't run him. I couldn't run my handicapper on this ground." So we aborted and took the view that we could go to the Dante because we had to test this horse. And long-winded answer, but I was very impressed with him, and I think he showed that day that it looked as though he'd stay well, and he needed that run anyway. So it was a very good performance. He's playful and very intelligent horse. Andrew sent him off to the top event rider, Dan Jocelyn, because he just feels that he felt the horse needed something else to entertain him. And it had an immediate impact on the animal. And Dan, was saying this is one of the most intelligent horses I've ever sat on. And he's done poles and dressage, and he came back from those sessions a much happier horse, much more relaxed horse, much easier to handle. it's not like he sweats or it's just he is the boss. You know, in the wild he'd be the leader of the pack, and he lets everyone know it. So yeah, come Derby Day, please God, if we get there in one piece, I think the biggest issue for Andrew will be just making sure he gets to the start calmly and successfully. The rest of it, we know it doesn't faze him actually in the race.
And you have been in a similar position before, having a Derby favourite in Motivator. Could you compare this horse to that one?
They're very, very different horses. Motivator actually was a very anxious horse, and you know, I say anxious, he was very on his toes, very busy, slightly sort of got sweaty in the mornings, and needed careful handling to a degree. By Michael Bell did a great job with him. I think they're just different types. They're just different make and shapes. Motivator certainly thought would stay the Derby trip. As it turned out, he got away with it in the Derby. I think it actually probably was better over 1.25 miles. No, you get dealt the cards every year. We buy only 16, 17 sort of yearlings, and you hope that one or two of them will be decent horses. And we've been lucky over the years that to have had the likes of Motivator and Petrushka and Harbinger and this horse and Bow and others. And it's what the game's all about. You're trying to sort of allow your owners, enable them to compete at the highest level, but pay obviously a fraction of what it costs to do this if you did it on your own. And in Bonfire and Vow, I think we've got two horses that if we get here, will be they'll be very competitive, I'm sure.
Yeah, he won the fairway. Didn't handle Newmarket, so he might struggle on the track here. We'll see. But like I say, you never know until you're here. So he deserves his place, I suppose. But he's a horse for the back end of the year. He'll probably get further. Probably end up a Ledger horse.
So I was going to say, you've ridden the last two Ledger winners. Does he strike you more of that mould?
Yeah, he certainly does, and I think he's still relatively immature mentally and physically. So later on in the season he'll be a much better horse. I don't really like to say before the race where he would like to be placed, but top 6 that'd be satisfying. I think this year's going to be a good Derby, as it always is. So.
Thoughtworthy goes on to make a winning debut.
He ran at Sandown, again in heavy. He dispensed with the two boys on his side. Joseph and Aidan chose to use the faster ground round the outside. Having done that, they gave us a sort of 8th-length start in the straight. And the ground wasn't hugely different in the straight because they'd been racing on the hurdles course at the jumps meeting only 2 races earlier. And I think it was impressive. He came and got us. And we then freshened our boy up and came back for the fairway, which his brother did, won that. And he's a progressive horse. He wants the 1.5 miles. We'll see if he handles the track. That's never a given with a big, tall horse like him. But he's in great form, and the owner's very much a proper sportsman, Mr. Strawbridge, and he owned and bred the horse, and you like to have a runner and then probably freshen him up for the Great Voltager.
In his career, he is following a similar path to his brother, St. Ledger winner Lecane. He finished 4th in the Derby. Do you think that's sort of roughly where Thoughtworthy would be thereabouts? Yeah,
I think you've got to run well. I mean, if he handles the track, I think he'll run a nice race. If he doesn't handle the track, then you just say, lesson learned, freshen up. Great Voltager would be the way I'd handle it. But he's a lovely horse, and it's come a bit quick on a lot of them with the weather. They're finally getting some ground, so it's nice to see him come back up the hill like he did at Newmarket.
And of the opposition, is it Camelot and only Camelot to beat?
Look, he's a class horse. I first saw him in the Racing Post Trophy and stood down by the rail there, and he just absolutely outclassed him. He's an exceptional horse. I thought Joseph asked him a very big question in the Guineas, and he taught him a lot coming through horses, but he took a chance and the horse answered the call and showed his class again. I'm sure he'll stay, and I think he's a very, very legitimate short price favourite. But the Derby is a Derby, anything can happen. It's not a big flat open track where things can happen in Derby, and if he handles the track and he stays, of course he wins. But you've got to be in. You've got a horse like Parish Hall, could come like the joker late into the pack. We've got some nice solid horses here in England that stay well, but probably don't have Camelot's class.
Well, Henry, we saw Rugged Cross on the turf earlier, and a lively outsider for this year's Derby.
Yeah, I think he's such a game, gutsy little horse, and he's well balanced. I think he could run a reasonable sort of a race.
And what did you make of his performance behind Thoughtworthy last time out?
Because he'd had various niggly problems and he hadn't done an awful lot of work, I thought it was a very good effort. I thought for one glorious moment when he got running that he was going to get there, but he did just need that run. If he's come on for it, then he should run a good race. There's that awful word, the bounce factor, which I've no idea what it means scientifically, but I do know that it can often happen when a horse has been off for a long, long time and he comes back and has a hard race, runs a good race. Often the next one's a bit disappointing. But this is a tough little horse and I hope we'll avoid that.
But is he giving the signs that he's come on for that run?
He's done absolutely nothing since, obviously, because it was a hard race 5 days ago and I didn't want him to do anything this morning. He'll have a little spin on Saturday at home, but it won't be anything very revealing. So I really can't answer that question, but he looks perfectly relaxed and he's eating everything and he seems to have a happy disposition, so I don't think we've done any damage, hopefully.
And his last run was over 1.25 miles, steps up to 1.5 miles for the Epsom Derby. Do you think that will suit?
Absolutely don't know. Cape Cross, Green Desert horse, mostly an influence for speed, but he's had Ouija Board and he's had See the Stars, and on the dam side there's fantastic stayers like War Sun and Luzo, but she's a Soviet star mare herself, the mother, so you really wouldn't know. I personally think 1.25 miles might be his trip, but 1.25 miles horses have won the Derby in the past, so we can be hopeful.
Realistically then, where do you hope to finish?
If we could grab a little bit of prize money, that would be nice. I think it goes down to about 6. I mean, that would be a good run, I think, if you're realistic. But with Rugged Cross, you never know, because he is all heart, and he could just surprise us and do a little bit better.